So I am honored to bring up to the stage our next speaker, Daria, who is going to be talking about some of the beautiful things.
Hello, husband in the back. How are you? So you will hear about, he's part of my story and the story of perimenopause. What your mother and your girlfriends did not tell you. So since they didn't tell you, I have called it upon myself to be that auntie, that big sister, that mother, whatever it is that you need that they didn't tell you, I wanted to share. So, if it's not coming up, that's fine. But it was music. It's music. It's some lively, jazzy music. So let me ask you this while we're waiting. Uh-oh. So what you don't see, you hear this music, but there's a video, and it's the introduction about perimenopause. But that is, as Ernie says, the way to come in.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. How many of you, prior to, say, the last 2 years, had heard about perimenopause? Raise your hands. Okay, so less than half of the room. How many of you had heard about menopause? Okay, we know about that. So I'm going to share with you some of the differences. At 18, is it here?
Dr. Mike is on.
Oh, you guys can hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. At 18, I applied and attended the only public school or private university that I applied for on academic scholarship. At 19, I had a less than 1.0 GPA. The counselor called me in and said, "Miss Bartlow, you were such a good student of promise. What happened?" Now, being the stubborn person that I can be, I decided I didn't want to go to the junior college. I was being a snob. I was going to go to work in corporate America. So that's what I did. And in my 20s, a director said to me, "You're not going to end up as anything more than a clerk at Mervyn's." You heard yesterday someone talk about being an executive at Mervyn's. They said that I was only going to be a clerk. A few years later, still in my 20s, a vice president said to me, Daria does not have a mind of her own. She only does things because her friends do." Those of you who know me know that I definitely have a mind of my own.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But when, and you've heard it all throughout this, when someone tells you something and you take it on, we have one of two things to do. We can believe it, or we can get mad and we can do something about it. I chose the latter. So, fast forward, about 20 years later, I had an executive MBA in management. I was a corporate leader in my corporation. And I met this young man who convinced me that I didn't want to break the glass ceiling and that a life with him would be very good. And so I said, okay. And just so that you know, on Tuesday, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. 4 months after we were married, I started having excruciating pains. I started feeling terrible. I went to the doctor. The doctor said to me, Mrs. Rosen, you need a hysterectomy. I said, no, I can't have a hysterectomy. I'm an only child. My father has been desirous to be a grandfather for as long as I can remember. And the man that I just married 4 months ago has been praying to be a father since he was a child, like you, Nishika, wanted to be a mother. A hysterectomy is not an option. So I started researching, what can I do to not have the surgery? And I found a neuropathic, I don't know what he was really called, but he said, do you not want to have surgery? I said, no, I don't. He said, change your diet. So I did. So instead of going to the doctor every month in so much pain that I could barely walk, I had changed my diet. And I didn't have to go to the doctor for months. But during this whole process, I started asking people, do you know what happens to your body as we get older? Most people, no. Do you know what happens to our body as we get older? No. When you were 8, 9, or 10, did you have someone, a woman in your life, who said to you, you're going to have a cycle. It's going to begin. Raise your hand if somebody told you that you were going to have a cycle. Most women did. However, no one says what starts, stops. We don't talk about it. And so, during that whole time, fast forward a couple of years, the endometriosis came roaring back, and I did have to have a hysterectomy. My father took me to the specialist, and he said to him, sir, I have to do 11 procedures on your daughter during the surgery. My father looked at him and said, is my daughter going to die? And he said, sir, she very well can. We go to the car, and Daddy looks at me and says, Daria, I would much rather have you than any grandchild that I don't know. You have this surgery. I said, okay. We go home, and I have to tell my new husband, Stephen, I have to have a hysterectomy. Your dream of being a father is not going to happen. He said to me, Daria, the Lord picked you for me, and so I would rather have you than any child that we don't have yet.
That's right.
So I had the surgery. The two men who meant the most to me were the winds beneath my wings. They were encouraging. They said, you're going to be fine. But I was broke. I was broken because I felt less than. Less than, not that I was less of a woman, but lesser than that I couldn't provide them what would just have made them happy. But as I said, all good, something good comes out of everything. So during that time, as I was asking women, do you know about this? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me tell you. Let me tell you. I start with, oops. I start with hot flashes because that is what most of us, it's visual. You can see somebody fanning. So is it all right if I just very quickly tell you about 3 of the symptoms of perimenopause and how it impacts you?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So what do you know about, when you hear the word hygiene, what do you think about?
Personal
bath.
Exactly. Exactly. But there is such a thing as your sleep hygiene. Your body needs sleep. Raise your hand if you have a car, you know someone who has a car, or you've ridden in a car. Okay. If something goes wrong with that car, and you take it to the shop, and you give them the 10 things that are wrong with it, and they say, we can fix that. And you come back when they call you and they tell you, it's ready, but we only fix this piece 10%. We only fix this piece 20%. We didn't even touch this one over here. And you just whip out your wallet and you give them your credit card and you say, I'll pay for it. How many of you would do that?
No.
Exactly. That is what we are doing to our bodies when we don't get rest. And I have to tell you, last night I didn't get rest. But that's what we're doing. Our body uses that time to repair. So if we don't allow our bodies to sleep and repair, we are running on a vehicle just like the one that you took that you wouldn't pay for. Steve Dutton says, sleep is the golden cord that binds your body and health. How many of you are Windows people with computers? Okay. If any of you are techies and you've heard them talk about defragging, defragging means there are little pixels over here, pixels over here, pixels over here. They're not together. The purpose of defragging is to join them all together. That's what your body is doing at night when you sleep. It's pulling everything back together so that your body, the computer, will run efficiently. When we don't sleep, we're leaving pixels on the right that should be on the left and vice versa. So my recommendation is that you hear all kinds of things, sleep practices. Train your body, get a schedule. If you go to sleep at 5 on one night, 7 on another, at 1 o'clock on the next night, your body doesn't know what you're doing. So if you can just do that first thing, just try it a couple of nights a week. So that's about sleep. Second, we hear about mood swings. Mood swings, you're not by yourself. We are not an island. As that song says, no man is an island. We work, we have businesses, you have employees, you have coworkers, you have families. Those mood swings don't allow the excuse to use the mood swing as, oh, I'm having mood swings, I can be nasty, I can do this. No. But I want you to grant, when you're working with other people, grant some leeway. Because the woman who is happy right now and smiling, the next moment she may be crying. It's because those hormones just went wacky. So give some grace. Especially with the people that you live with. Because otherwise they'll think, Mom is going crazy. And Mom really isn't. Mom is dealing with the depletion and the fluctuation. The third is, I'm going to go back to hot flashes. So like I said at the beginning, hot flashes are one of the most visible things to see. And hot flashes, layering is not just for cakes. So, I'm going to tell you a story. Imagine that you are at the busiest shopping center in your town. There are cars all the time. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my husband and I were on the busy street of our town, and I said to him, do you hear that train? He said, what train? Because if your area is like mine, the train does not run near the mall or the shopping center. We keep going down the road. Did you turn up the heat? No. And you don't hear that train? I'm like, no. And I mean, I'm literally looking around. I snatch off my coat, and we keep going. I snatch off my sweater. At this point, he's looking at me, what is she doing? Because I'm very reticent in many ways. The fact that it was light enough that people could see inside was concerning. When I snatched off my shirt, he's like, whoa, whoa, what's going on? I was having my first hot flash. And as I like to say, if it had been dark, I might have snatched my bra off because it was just so hot. So layering is not just for cakes. So if you are feeling those kind of things, start to wear clothes that you can remove. If you're also like me and you're heavier than you're supposed to, weight holds heat. And if you're heavier or you've got on only one layer and you become hot, you're in trouble. Anything else. So those are the three that I'm just covering right now, but there are multiple symptoms. And so if you go to yesterday, I talked about www.I'mStillHot.com. Yes. And there is a checklist that gives you the 8 most common symptoms. However, for today, anyone who signs up who goes to the thing, I have the first 5. I do have a book, but also I will give you 8 of the most uncommon symptoms. Has anybody heard about metallic taste in your mouth?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some. So there are all kinds of things. These bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, but they do things. But if we don't talk about it, if you have gone through perimenopause and menopause and you haven't shared it with your nieces and your daughters, you need to. We need to talk about it. It is not anything to be shameful. So I am Daria Rosen. I help women shake the fear, ditch the shame, and embrace the change, and move to the next chapter of life. Thank you.